Now, I want to talk for a second about measuring because it's important in times like these to understand how much engagement we have. Just going to do this briefly. So the primary work of E3 Solutions is we have a proprietary tool that measures how engaged employees are when they're at work. What I want to show you is why that's important in this time to have that kind of data. Now, we define employee engagement as an employee's willingness to freely give their discretionary effort to their employer. And that's really important. Do they want to give that extra layer or level of performance that they have that they can only volunteer? And that's really important in this kind of environment because there are lots of other competitors for that discretionary effort, whether it's their children, a spouse, just the environment, dealing and coping with the threat. This is what it looks like when you measure engagement, and it looks like a bell curve or a histogram. And we divide this bell curve of engagement into 4 categories. I want to start on the right. The actively engaged, typically 5 to 15% of employees in the early stages of a company measuring, and then the engaged. These are the employees that are giving discretionary effort when they're at work, consistently and predictably. The somewhat disengaged, which is usually the largest group, they're rarely going above and beyond in any way, shape, or form. They're doing close to the bare minimum. The actively disengaged, the folks on the far left, are totally checked out, doing well below the minimum, and have figured out a way to get away from it, get away with it. The actively disengaged are the employees that we say quit, but they just never told you, and they're still getting a paycheck. In one of the values of having a highly engaged culture is that those employees, the employees to the right of that center line, are more resilient around setbacks, change, disorientation. They're able to endure it more readily and then to snap back more quickly when they're out of that situation. So you could say this is also a resiliency bell curve, that the employees to the right on the bell curve are going to be far more resilient in times of struggle and stress than the employees on the left. And this is why it's important for you. Now, this is a longer term issue, but I feel like I would be remiss if I didn't talk about the importance of knowing what does that spread look like in your company. And I'll give you an example. We have 2 companies, 2 client companies, where 81% of their employees are engaged. That is, 81% of the employees are to the right of that line in the center. It would be a very skewed bell curve. We know that those employees are going to be more able to endure and recover from this challenge than organizations where only 40 or 50% of employees are engaged. So I did want to give you all of these tools on dealing with the stress and isolation and anxiety, but I feel remiss if I didn't say you need to start measuring this so you have a sense of how resilient your whole culture and company is. This is an example from a real company. When we measure engagement, we do it by work groups. And you see manager 1, their work group was 100% engaged. But then we have another manager down at the bottom there, manager 4, whose work group is 100% disengaged. Same company, same pay scale, same culture. One work group 100% engaged, the other 100% disengaged. Now, the only difference between these 2 work groups, frankly, is the manager. That's the key issue. But what we do know in this environment, in this context, that manager 1's work group at 100% engagement is going to be more able to adapt with the new norm and to do their work much more so than the employees in work group 4 in this example, where they were disengaged before all of this happened. So just, there's going to be some resiliency here that you want to build into your company no matter what the stressors are. This is just one of the reasons why engagement is so very, very important.